When I first came across this story, I was shocked and a little bit pissed off for this guy. Jon Wang is an 18-year-old American student. He has a GPA of 4.65. He scored 1590 on his SAT test. The SAT test is out of 1600. He was 10 points off from getting a perfect score.
You're a goddamn genius!
This man is an academic scholar, and on top of that, he participates in extracurricular activities. When applying for college, he applied to 6 elite schools, and he was rejected by every last one. So you're probably wondering, but why? Did he fat shame Lizzo on Twitter?
Bruh.
Did he have a hashtag MeToo moment?
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Did he misgender someone?
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
Well, the reason that Jon Wang was rejected from 6 elite schools that he applied to is because he's not black. Like I'm kind of joking, but not really. Hello everyone. If you are a new viewer, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you're a returning viewer and you have not yet subscribed,
don't be economic girly man.
Don't be an economical girly man, okay? Listen, that video is like 20 years old. And it's been living in my head rent-free every single day for the last 20 years. But don't forget to subscribe. Anyways, like I mentioned in the intro, Jon Wang is an 18-year-old American student who was rejected from 6 elite colleges despite having a 4.65 GPA and a near-perfect SAT score. He was rejected from MIT, from Harvard, from Princeton, Carnegie Mellon, UC Berkeley, and Caltech. And he alleges that the reason he was rejected by these 6 schools is because he is Asian. I know growing up, your elders tell you that life's not fair, but like, damn. Life was like F you and your tiger parents to Jon Wang. Oh my gosh. The fact that this man could not get accepted into any of those colleges, it's really mind-boggling, especially when you consider that people like this get accepted into college.
It's on the $5 bill.
Not George Washington.
Close. Take a guess though.
Janet Jackson.
Correct.
According to Jon Wang, when he was applying for college, he was actually warned by his guidance counselor that he may have difficulty getting into college because of his race. Honestly, I think the real problem here is not that Jon is Asian. I think the problem is that Jon is not creative. This is 2023, okay? You can be whatever the f*** you want to be. If I were Jon, I would have identified as a black woman and applied for college. Problem solved. They can't tell you you're not because that's the world that we live in.
I mean, I don't know what you're implying.
Are you African American?
I don't understand.
He could have pulled a Rachel Dolezal. He could have done what Rachel did. Okay, look, I'm done. I'm done with the jokes for now. But moving on. Jon reached out to an organization called Students for Fair Admissions, and he had this to say about the meeting that he had with them.
The bias against Asian applicants is real and wrong, says Students for Fair Admissions, which Jon learned about through a relative.
I read up on their cause, and I found that it really resonated with me, so I joined the organization as well. I gave them my test scores and a few other things about me, and then they must have ran the model on that, and then Edward Bloom told me my results, and so they said I had a 20% chance of gaining admission to Harvard as an Asian American, and then a 95% chance as an African American.
What did I say? Rachel Dolezal.
Just talking with my friends and like guidance counselors, they all told me that it's like tougher to get in, like especially as an Asian American. I just took it as gospel.
That's also the conclusion of the highly respected Princeton Review, a company that provides test prep and college admissions advice for high school students. This is from their book, Cracking College Admissions.
Many Asian Americans have been extraordinarily successful academically, to the point where some colleges now worry that there are too many Asian Americans on their campuses. Being an Asian American can now actually be a distinct disadvantage in the admissions processes at some of the most selective schools in the country.
So what's an Asian applicant to do?
If you're given an option, don't attach a photograph to your application, and don't answer the optional question about your ethnic background. Do not write your application essay about the importance of your family or the positive/negative aspects of living in two cultures.
I have to say that when I found this story, I was actually very shocked. I had no idea that affirmative action had such a negative impact on Asian students, especially when you consider the definition of affirmative action. Asian students should be the ones benefiting from it. And I was even more shocked to see just how many left-leaning organizations are not even reporting the story. I actually have a premium account with Ground News, and I found this story while scrolling through their website. Ground News is the world's first news comparison platform, with a mission of providing its users with a place to not only find trending news stories and underreported news stories, but it is also designed in a way to showcase media bias. Take, for example, this story about Jon Wang. I actually found this news story through this really cool feature on Ground News' website called Blind Spot. The thing that I love about Blind Spot is that it identifies which stories are being underreported by either left-wing, right-wing, or centrist organizations. In the case of Jon Wang, on the right-hand side of the webpage, you can see a visual breakdown of which media organizations are reporting this story, and we can also see that it is being underreported by the left-wing media, while there are 9 right-wing sources that are reporting it. You can also choose specific topics to follow, such as a specific news story, like the Target scandal, a specific person, such as Meghan Markle or Donald Trump, a location, such as Ukraine, or a source such as CNN or Fox News. And if you like what you see and you would like to unlock all of the features that Ground News offers, my link will give 30% off unlimited access. Thank you to Ground News for sponsoring this video. And now, time to get back to this crazy news story that the left-wing media is completely ignoring. As a result of these discriminatory admissions practices, a class action lawsuit has been filed against Harvard and the University of North Carolina. And the plaintiff representing the students is the organization Students for Fair Admissions. This case has made it all the way to the Supreme Court in the US. And if these students are successful in their lawsuit, this could mean the end of affirmative action for college admissions. The prospect of rolling back affirmative action has of course been met with mixed emotions. On one hand, this would mean a focus on meritocracy rather than on meeting racial quotas. Racial quotas are what many people argue is what's driving this discrimination towards Asian students. Many people believe that these schools have a cap on how many Asian students they will accept. However, these schools deny that they have racial quotas.
Asian Americans have the highest grades, SATs, and the most fulsome extracurricular activities, but they are downgraded. They're given demerits on their personality by Harvard's admissions officers. They are deemed less likable, less courageous, less honest, have fewer leadership capabilities.
Harvard denies discrimination in its admissions process. In a court filing, Harvard defended its use of personality ratings as a methodically sound and race-neutral approach to evaluating a candidate, indicating there is no evidence, statistical or otherwise, that the personal rating is discriminatory, and Asian American applicants were not held to a higher standard. Harvard did not respond to interview requests for this story. As the future of affirmative action hangs in the balance this fall, some proponents of the practice believe there may be more at stake for Asian Americans if it's deemed unconstitutional.
There's an irony here when it comes to Asian American students. Elimination of race-conscious admissions isn't going to necessarily increase the chances of Asian American applicants in gaining admissions.
Mitchell Chang, who testified for UNC in the case heading to the Supreme Court, says getting rid of race-based affirmative action could ultimately hurt Asian Americans in college admissions. He says more universities could eliminate standardized testing to help level the playing field for Black and Latinx students, whom studies have shown are at a disadvantage. However, Asian Americans are known to score the highest on standardized tests, which the Ivies made optional at the start of the pandemic.
If you just did it by scores, only scores, would you have what? A majority of Asian undergraduate people in Harvard?
Can I just jump in? Because
Sure,
that's
please.
what Harvard did. They call it a fake study, whatever. Harvard wrote down on a piece of paper that if they were to do that, 43% of their student body would be Asian Americans. And they deny that. That's one of the key pieces of evidence in this case that has worked its way up through the Supreme Court. I think that this Supreme Court, I think, is going to do away with this.
Wow.
Unfortunately for students everywhere, I think that the schools are going to find some sneaky way to get around it.
Some argue that affirmative action creates a stigma from the students who benefit from it, because others may question whether they earn their way based off of their own merit.
The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to rule on the future of affirmative action at America's colleges and universities. The divisive cases will be decided in part by two senior justices who say that they've benefited from the policy, but who now sharply disagree on whether it should continue.
The Supreme Court's most senior conservative and most senior liberal both rose from humble beginnings. Clarence Thomas grew up poor in still segregated rural Georgia before getting accepted to Yale Law School in 1971.
The effort on the part of Yale during my years there was to reach out and open its doors to minorities whom it felt were qualified.
Just 5 years later, Sonia Sotomayor tread a similar path to Yale from the Bronx.
One of the poorest neighborhoods in the United States when I was growing up. And yet none of those challenges have stopped me reaching where I have. And I attributed all of it to my education.
The court's only Latina and its only black man both credit affirmative action with helping them access elite educations. Yet both are now starkly opposed on whether the practice should continue.
Once again, it's the elites. I mean, they're telling us what we need.
Thomas has had his sights set on ending affirmative action for years, but he once seemed to support the necessity of race-conscious programs.
I've supported affirmative action programs. Whether or not I agree with all of them, I think, is a matter of record. But the fact that I don't agree with all does not mean that I'm not a supporter of the underlying effort.
Thomas went on to Yale Law School, which admitted him at the same time it was openly recruiting more minority students. But years later, in stern dissents, Thomas would call affirmative action a faddish theory that stigmatized him.
One of the things that would happen when I was nominated to the court, that I couldn't possibly be as good as the white Yale graduates, because I obviously went to Yale because of the color of my skin.
Sotomayor takes a different approach.
The inequalities in society build that barrier so high that unless you do something to either knock it down a little bit or help that person up over it, they're never going to have a chance.
The philosophical contrast is on display in a pair of landmark cases that now pit Harvard and the University of North Carolina, which consider race in admissions, against a group of Asian American student challengers, led by conservative legal activist Edward Bloom.
A student's race or ethnicity should not be used to help him or harm him in his chances of gaining admission to a competitive college.
For the record, Jon Wang was eventually accepted into the Georgia Institute of Technology, and he says that he's happy to be going there. The Supreme Court is expected to make its decision on July 4th of 2023. So that is very soon. And if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the students, this could mean an end to race-based college admissions for good. My personal thoughts on this are that we need to rethink how we go about making things more fair. Many years ago, affirmative action was needed because of the social and racial landscape at that time. But since then, things have improved so drastically. And while we don't live in a perfect world, things have gotten much better. And I think now we are at a point in time where we can revisit these conversations and have more of a focus on equality rather than equity. Because I don't believe that you can guarantee the same outcome for everybody, but I do believe that everybody should have fair access. But what do you think? Do you think that affirmative action for college admissions is still necessary, or do you think that it should be done away with and everything should be strictly merit-based only? If you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button because it helps me in the algorithm. If you are not yet subscribed, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you would like to follow me on social media, you can follow me at NissCee.Social on Instagram. If you would like to support me monetarily, I do have a Patreon account and I will have the link to that in the description box down below. And if you would like to see 2 more videos, I have 2 more videos for you in the end cards that I think you will enjoy. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.